I want to give a shout out to @Shamanu. Shamanu? Shamanu. I'm apologizing if I'm butchering it, who was curious whether this game was worth checking out. I really wanted to like Echoes of the End. It has a very strong statement. Power isn't evil. Fear and control are. However, it fails to deliver on why that statement is true. Welcome back to the Asari Gamer, where we explore the art of video games one game at a time. As always, we'll look at this game through the lens of storytelling, world building, visual design, audio and atmosphere, and personal enjoyment. You play as Rin, a protagonist who is very difficult to like. She constantly belittles those who care for her, namely Kor and Abram.
I still can't believe Commander Kellan gave you a focal brace. I said no. Shut up and keep up.
The game positions this behavior as a defense mechanism. Because of her inherent magic, Rin has never been fully accepted by society, and that isolation has hardened her into someone abrasive and hostile. On paper, that's a workable foundation for a character arc. What complicates this, though, is that despite her cruelty, Rin will repeatedly put herself in harm's way to protect the very people she mocks. That contradiction could have been compelling. Instead, it's never meaningfully interrogated. At a broader level, Echoes of the End tells us its story is about power. Specifically, that immense magical power is dangerous, destabilizing, and never meant to be held by a single human. The game reinforces this idea again and again through its world building, until the moment it matters most. I won't give spoilers here, but that ending failed to deliver their point. One of the game's major plot twists also fails to land, largely because the cast is so small. With only 5 named characters, there's no real room for misdirection. When the twist arrives, it isn't surprising, not because of clever foreshadowing, but because the outcome becomes obvious through simple process of elimination. At first glance, the world of Echoes of the End feels lived in. You see roaring hearth fires, burning torches, fish nets left to dry, all the small environmental detail that suggest daily life once existed here. But the illusion doesn't hold for long because the world is strangely empty. There is almost no wildlife. You'll see a few birds, some foxes you can pet, and a single rat. Just the one. Beyond that, the world feels abandoned in a way that doesn't seem intentional. The game frequently shows human skeletons, implying that people once lived here, but there's no clear explanation for who is maintaining the environment now. Fires are still lit, torches still burn, nets are still set. Yet there are no civilians, no routines, and no visible force responsible for keeping the world alive. This creates a disconnect. The environment looks inhabited, but behaves like a stage set, dressed beautifully, but lacking the systems or presence that would make it feel truly lived in. From a usability standpoint, Echoes of the End is easy to navigate. Built in Unreal Engine, it uses a familiar control layout and UI language that will feel immediately readable to most players. Menus are clear, inputs are intuitive, and nothing about interacting with the game feels confusing or inaccessible. Where the visual design stumbles is in character presentation, specifically with Kara. Kara's facial design leans so heavily into exaggerated expressions that it repeatedly undermines the tone of the scenes she appears in. Her animations are extremely teethy, and yes, teethy is the right word here, to the point that moments meant to feel serious or emotionally grounded veer unintentionally into comedy. I couldn't help but think of Fire Marshal Bill every time she appeared on screen. When visual exaggeration pulls attention away from dialogue and emotional beats, it weakens the scene, not because the assets are poor, but because the tone no longer matches the intent. There isn't anything particularly outstanding in Echoes of the End when it comes to audio or atmosphere. The music generally does its job, supporting scenes without drawing much attention to itself. At times it leans a bit overdramatic, but that's fairly typical for the genre. One audio choice does stand out though, and not in a good way. During one of the cave chapters, you can clearly hear birds chirping in the background. You never see them, but you hear them consistently. It's a small detail, but it's a strange one. Cave birds aren't really a thing, and without any visual or environmental justification, the sound choice feels out of place. Instead of adding atmosphere, it briefly pulls you out of the world. Overall, the audio design is competent, but moments like this highlight a lack of cohesion between sound and environment. On a personal level, Echoes of the End frustrated me in a very specific way: the lack of a manual save system. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. If I need to step away for any reason, I can't. I'm forced to keep playing until I reach a save point or lose the progress I made up until that point. And in another very specific way as well, every level has a new gimmick. They were completely unnecessary. Once you had double jump and dash, jump bubbles and dagger jumps were completely useless in 90% of the game. There were a few small moments that did work for me though. I found kinship with Abram, who would frequently stop and take in the environment. More than once, I realized my camera angle was pointed at the exact same thing he was looking at, and that gave me a quiet chuckle. By the end, this game is 1 out of 5 stars from me. It earns that single star for baseline audio competence. The sound design functions, even if it never elevates the experience. And that's disappointing because I really wanted to like this game. I always root for smaller studios and independent publishers, especially when they're reaching for ambitious ideas. But Echoes of the End never commits to the consequences of its own story, and without that commitment, its strongest themes lose their impact. This isn't a game I disliked out of spite. It's one I walked away from wishing it had been braver.